Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. As many of you know, Ira Allen is credited as the founder of the University of Vermont. But he's far from the only person to call the Green Mountains home while also establishing an institution of higher learning. A stone's throw away from where Allen's statue stands on the UVM Green was the home of Oliver Otis Howard. A hero of the Civil War, he was a major general, a white man, and the namesake of Howard University, an historically black university in Washington, D.C. Oliver Otis Howard was an ally and advocate for African Americans, and yet his life was not without controversy when it comes to the rights and beliefs for all people of color in America. Let's join another Howard, Vermont historian Howard Coffin, who brings us the story of a career military man who was nicknamed the Christian General.
To Oliver Otis Howard, Black lives mattered. Well, here we are again in Burlington's Lakeview Cemetery with its remarkable grouping of Civil War graves, including 3 genuine heroes of the Battle of Gettysburg. A huge stone marks the grave of William Wells, who was a leader of the great cavalry charge late in the battle at Gettysburg. George Stannard's memorial marks the grave of Vermont's great hero at Gettysburg, who led the attack of the 2nd Vermont Brigade that broke Pickett's charge, probably the telling blow of the entire Civil War. And then there is the highest ranking of the 3, the grave of Oliver Otis Howard, Major General. Howard was born in Leeds, Maine in 1840. Father died at age 9. He was admitted early to Bowdoin and graduated at age 19. Then he was off to West Point, and one of his best friends was Jeb Stuart, the great Confederate cavalryman. Indeed, it's said that hadn't it been for Howard and the help he gave, Stuart might not have graduated. His first military assignment is in Florida. He has some kind of a religious experience that makes him an extremely devout man for the rest of his life. Then one day in church, he sees an elderly black woman try to make her way to the front of the church, and people begin jeering her and blocking her way, including some of Howard's fellow officers. Howard doesn't like it. He rises to go and help that woman, and from then on, he will be an advocate for the rights of black people. Howard, for a short time, on the first day at Gettysburg, is in command of the entire Union Army. And retreating through the village of Gettysburg, he sees a small boy and asks him to take him to a high point so he can see the surrounding territory. The boy takes him to the top of a building, and from there Howard sees the high ground of Cemetery Hill and Cemetery Ridge. And he orders his army to dig in there and make it its defensive position. It is on those high grounds that the Battle of Gettysburg will be won. And it is to Howard's tremendous credit that he saw that and got the army up there. Oliver Howard spent a lot of time at army posts like these. This, of course, is Fort Ethan Allen. His son, Guy, was the Army engineer who oversaw the construction of this place. After Gettysburg, Howard was assigned to the Western theater of the war, and became commander of the Army of the Tennessee, serving under William Tecumseh Sherman. And Sherman said he was his best general on the march from Atlanta to the sea. "We'll make Georgia howl," said Sherman, and they did. Late in the war, Abraham Lincoln approached Howard about an important job. This, incidentally, is the tube in which Howard's Major General Commission came. Family members told me that Lincoln actually handed this to Howard. Lincoln wanted him to run the Freedmen's Bureau. After the war, he wanted Howard to lead the effort to bring former slaves into American society, to find jobs for them, make sure they had an income, to give them some political representation. And Howard quickly accepted and led the Freedmen's Bureau, and it was a struggle. After Lincoln's assassination, President Johnson, a Southerner, did everything he could to stop the Freedmen's Bureau. But finally, he was out of office. Ulysses Grant came in, and Howard had free sailing, and the Freedmen's Bureau made remarkable progress in the South. But maybe it made a little bit too much progress. And in 1872, Howard was shipped west, continuing his Army career in the Indian Wars. He and one aide walked into the camp of Cochise, the great Apache warrior, and negotiated his surrender. Howard then was involved in a campaign against the Nez Perce up on the Canadian border, fighting the military genius Chief Joseph. He beat Joseph, and too many Native Americans died in that campaign. Howard wasn't perfect. Joseph surrendered with the famous words, "I will fight no more forever." Finally, Howard retires, and he retires to Burlington to be close to his son Guy, putting together Fort Ethan Allen. Howard's son Guy not only built Fort Ethan Allen, he built this home for his father and mother here on Burlington Summit Street. So Howard lived here, and he had an office down in the city of Burlington, and every day he walked down to his office, put in a full day's work, and walked home. Not only did he found Howard University and spent a lot of time working on Howard matters, and according to members of the family, descendants of Howard, Abraham Lincoln had asked him to found a college in eastern Tennessee, Abraham Lincoln Memorial. On October 26, 1894, he went to work as usual, walked down the hill. An old lady along College Street used to say that her goat chased him many days. This day he went to work, but did not feel well. On the way up the hill, Howard did something he never did. He accepted the offer of a ride. And he came here to the house, went up these steps, went to the front door. He took the doorknob with his left hand because his right arm had been shot away at Fair Oaks. He went into the house, went upstairs. His wife heard him. By the time she reached his bedroom, he was dead. It was my privilege, quite a few years ago now, to know Oliver Otis Howard's twin granddaughters, Harriet Howard and Susan Howard Webb. They told me their grandfather came to church here at the First Congregational Church of Burlington every Sunday. and so its funeral, of course, was held here. The minister was a man named Ernest Graham. His eulogy began and ended with the same quote from Timothy: "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the course. I have kept the faith." With the service concluded, a procession led by black cavalrymen from Fort Ethan Allen, the Buffalo Soldiers, accompanied the casket to Lakeview Cemetery. Harriet and Susan told me that they went to Gettysburg to select a site for the monument to Oliver Otis Howard, and it's there today, a gigantic monument on Cemetery Hill with him on his horse. They were guided about Gettysburg, they said, by a little old man who knew the battlefield well. As it turned out, he had been the young boy who took Oliver Otis Howard to the top of that high building to pick out Cemetery Hill as the great defensive position for the Union Army that brought victory at Gettysburg.
Thanks to Howard and the Across the Fence associate producer Keith Silva for bringing us that story. To discover more about the Civil War and Vermont today, visit your hometown library or local bookseller and ask for Howard's book, Something Abides. It's an in-depth look at the well-known and little-known people and places of Vermont's Civil War past. That's our program for today. I'm Fran Stoddard. Thanks for joining us. Stay well.